In the absence of Chairman Wallen Miller, I will go ahead and call today's meeting and work session to order. We are going to open with a work session, so I need a motion to approve the work session agenda.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Dennison, second by Ms. Thompson. Dr. Grimsey.
Yes, ma'am. It is my pleasure to, introduce, who's in charge of this one? I have to go back and see who we designated as our, I think it may be me.
I think it is you.
It is me, yes, thank you. Members of the board, the Pinecrest High School Film Club produced a 17-minute video intended to raise student, staff, and community awareness concerning the legacy of the late Robert Bob Lee, superintendent of Moore County Schools from 1959 to 1985, and I think 1985 is correct. The video chronicles key achievements of Mr. Lee's tenure, including the consolidation and racial integration of Moore County schools. The film club members hope the video will become a fixture in Pinecrest's orientation of incoming freshmen and transfer students. Members of the student production team, if they'll stand when I call their names: Luke Diazio, Jake Hill, Matthew Botnick, and Ireland McBride. Are you the only one here today, Luke?
Yes, unfortunately.
Okay.
I didn't give enough due notice, and Matt is at work, and I believe Ireland is attending her cousin's funeral.
And
We all wish they could be.
well, thank you. Please share our regards with them. And I'm going to turn it over to you in just a minute to make a comment if you like. All right. Let me finish the introduction, and I'll turn it over to you guys here in just a second. We have with us today Shauna Farbotnik. Is she here today? Your film club sponsor is not here. And Ms. Peterson is also an informal advisor on the project. She's with us today. Students and their sponsors are interested in changing the signage over the Pinecrest auditorium. The names are still in float. I had one in there, but we're working on, and I'll let Luke mention that here shortly. They're going to share their rationale and report on the preliminary work that they've done. And other than that, I think I've said enough. That's a good introduction. I previewed this video late last week and just was very excited. I think that it's going to go public in a hurry. It's on YouTube. People are already seeing it. I just thought the board should have a preview of it before it gets too public. So, Madam Chairman, with your permission, I'm going to turn it over to our team. And
All right, Mr. Diazio.
do you all have, Ms. Peterson, Mr. Diazio, or any of your friends, if you all have anything to share before we get started, please do.
Just to give you guys a
Yeah,
little.
wait.
Tell you what, Luke, we're going to have you come over here to the
Microphone.
podium because we got a microphone over here. Thank you.
You're gonna be live on the internet.
Crazy. So the origin for this is that this past spring I helped at the Pinecrest Speech and Debate Camp, and while I was working there, I was talking to some of the other students from other schools, and a lot of them had no idea why the auditorium was named Robert E. Lee, which is kind of weird to think about. And I was listening to some of my fellow students explain why the name was named that, and none of them knew. And these are smart students, top of the class, high-profile debate students who don't know the origin of the name. And it really bothered me, so I basically did a lot of research, and then the origin of making an actual documentary about it was that I wanted to actually fix that issue. And I wanted to find something that would be a long-lasting solution. And we put it together, and the original goal was to create a documentary that students could view after finals exams. So instead of watching Moana or Jumanji, they would have something a little more topical to the school to actually view. And we did, and a lot of students actually saw it after finals, which was awesome. And so, yeah, and this is that documentary.
Great. Thank you, sir. Did I characterize it pretty accurately in my intro? Great, appreciate it. Well, without further ado, with your permission, we got a few guests with us today.
Yes, let's take a moment and recognize these guests.
Yeah. Let's see, how do we have not scripted this. With us today in our red carpet treatment, we have members of the family of Superintendent Lee with us. Madam Chair, I'll defer to you,
And I wish I could say that I knew all those names.
but you're going to defer to somebody who's going to help.
I'm going to call on someone I've known quite some time, Mary Lou Vaughn, who is a daughter of Robert Lee. And Ms. Vaughn, if you would stand maybe and introduce to us the folks that you have with you, other than the whole Diazio family who's there behind you.
Ms. Vaughn, if you could also come over to the microphone, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. I can't say enough to Luke and his crew about the job they did on this video. They made it so easy for us. You'll see me and my brother, and the other brother was not with us because he had just come out of surgery that morning that it was filmed, so poor Andy did not get to be in the video. But we have, I think there's quite a few of us. If you all stand, I'll try to get everybody in. I have my brother Edward and his wife Tamara, my brother Andy and his wife Laura, and then we have Edward's children, Anna, who's a senior at Pinecrest, and the other two graduated from Pinecrest, Kinsey and Rebecca. And then we have, my husband's Joe is outside waiting for my daughter, so they'll be here in a minute. So I'd like to thank you so much.
Well, thank you all for coming. Laura May, yes.
In Moore County, North Carolina, Southern Pines, Pinecrest High School has an auditorium named after Robert E. Lee. But it's not what you'd expect. We interviewed 191 Pinecrest students about the origin and purpose of the name during 3rd and 4th lunch on April 2nd, 2019. 1/3 of students wrote that they didn't know why it was named that way. 1/3 of students thought that it was named after the Confederate general. 18.3% put other incorrect answers. Only 13.4% of students put the correct answer. Moore County Superintendent. This auditorium is not named after the Confederate general. It's named after the superintendent who desegregated Moore County schools. But the next generation doesn't know his story. In a digital era where the memorialization of the Civil War is in the national spotlight with statues being torn down in Winston-Salem, Chapel Hill, and Durham, concerns about the auditorium's name are resurfacing. This is not the story of Robert E. Lee, the Confederate general. This is the story of Robert E. Lee of Moore County, and how over his 26-year tenure, he reshaped our entire education system, consolidating and integrating our schools. Robert E. Lee, not that one.
My father came from Virginia. He was born in Isle of Wight County, and the town was Franklin, Virginia. It's near Norfolk, Virginia.
His father was a Methodist preacher, and his mother had her master's degree in religious education. They met at Duke University, which was Trinity at the time. Every 4 years they changed churches, which Methodists do, so he was always wanted us to stay in one place. And he decided on Moore County in 1946. Came to Aberdeen High School, and by default got the girls' basketball team.
They assigned it to him, but he decided he would make the best of it. So he gathered the girls that wanted to play, and he said, "Do you want to win?" He said, "I want to know if you want to win." And it probably can't do this now, but if they wanted to play with him, he would buy them a basketball goal and a basketball to shoot at home. He wanted to win, and he did. And I believe that he won 10 conference championships in a row. And then he wanted to get a state championship because he knew he had a team that could compete, and he did.
He had to go argue before the state general assembly to get the women to go past a regular season. because they thought their reproductive organs would be harmed. And he had to prove that they wouldn't, or argue that they wouldn't, and they gave him the permission to have the first women's high school basketball team. In fact, I think in 2006 or 7, he was inducted into the North Carolina Athletic High School Hall of Fame. But then in 1959, he became superintendent of Moore County Schools. And at that time, there was Pinehurst City Schools, Southern Pines City Schools, and Moore County Schools.
There were somewhere between 15 and 20 different school districts in Moore County in the late 50s. They started the integration thing a little bit in the late 50s when Bob Lee became superintendent.
Moore County would do it on their terms and not the terms of the federal government. So they wanted to be out in front of the mandated, which I think Wilmington decided they would wait, and they had problems. But Daddy had a really good Board of Education that helped him a lot, and they decided that they would desegregate the schools.
But the people, by and large, were not for it.
He would come home and be very quiet because he would go in homes where there were dirt floors. You know, and he just wanted these everybody to have. He thought education was an equalizer. So he started, and he got a lot of bad feedback from certain people, and he would go downtown and people would walk across the street not to speak to him. So he was having a hard time, but it wasn't only Daddy, but he had Jerry McKeithen and other people that this was happening to. Voight Gilmore, I think Felton Cable was helping at the time. So there was a lot of animosity, but there was also a lot of help.
We were holding a meeting over here at Union Pines. Leaving the meeting, some lady grabbed my lapel, nose right in my face, and said, "Forgive me again. Don't let them in our school." The thing that a lot of people did to try to avoid integration was something called busing. Bob Lee said, and this is a good, true phrase, I heard him say it, "I'm gonna stop hauling little black children past white schools."
One night, we were up in our bedroom, and Daddy came up to me and said, "I don't want you to worry, but if something happens outside, I want you to go to this closet and don't come out until you hear my voice. There may be a cross burning in the yard, and there's a sheriff that's going to be spending the night." And he took us over there and showed us. I was never scared because Daddy was bigger than life to me.
I was born in 1961, so when I was in the first grade, I was in the first class by law that had to be integrated, ahead of what the Supreme Court decided. Moore County had an optional year where you could come in if you wanted to and be in part of the white school system. And then the year that I came in, it was fully integrated. So I didn't know anything different.
He was the right man at the right time because his morals, he had a moral compass that was true. And he stayed on that moral compass, that it was just the right thing to do. The right thing for the children of Moore County. That was always his saying. Is it right for the children of Moore County? Then we're going to go after it.
Okay. My father loved sports, but one of the things he also loved was hunting. He grew up hunting. His father taught him to hunt well early. And he had a lot of friends around here he'd like to go hunting with. And one day, he he would usually go into a store and get a Coke and some crackers and meet some friends in some of the local stores. And when some of the people found out what he was doing when he was trying to integrate the schools early, when he walked in the store, everyone had pre-planned to turn their backs to him, and they did. They all faced the wall, and some took papers and pretended they were reading the paper and faced the wall. And he asked how they were doing, but he didn't get a response. So he finally just said, "I see how it is, and now I know where we stand," and he left. But he didn't let that bother him, and he didn't have a list that he kept of people he didn't like. And later they came around and became friends and supporters of him, but that's the type of thing that he would run into during the bad days.
He went, and I think they had a vote in Southern Pines, and Pinehurst schools came into Moore County schools. And he continued to be superintendent, which was unusual. Usually they lost their job if there was mergers like that. And that was the year in 1969 that Pinecrest was built. I never really understood it because I was off at college at the time. But I know that he was going after children being educated at their own pace. And they were offering things in the consolidation that the single, like Aberdeen, Southern Pines, Pinehurst couldn't offer. If you brought the schools together, they could offer more foreign languages, more of almost everything. But he was excited about people going at their own pace. So he was always very excited about Pinecrest. To my understanding in Sand Hills, the community college concept was going around in the state, maybe the General Assembly, I'm not sure about that. But they wanted to know how viable it would be for Moore County and the surrounding areas to have a community college. So they asked Daddy if he thought it would sustain it, and he said, of course, he would love to have something like that. But his task was to get a survey of all the superintendents around the area to ask if they thought their students would come to a community college, in support of community college. And to my understanding, it was overwhelmingly yes.
Six to one in favor of the taxes to pay for the college and the schools. I think for the college particularly, it was about 9 to 1. You just don't find communities voting for tax increases that are that favorable for increasing the taxes.
I often ask, did she do this on purpose to you? Because it's the whole name, Robert Edward Lee. And she said, no, it just happened that way. But no, there was no, it just happened that was his name. He had to live with it his whole life. What you're doing right now is a really good step towards that. If you could make it part of your orientation program, because when they walk on campus and see that, I understand exactly why they might feel that way. But if it's part of if whatever you're doing is part of orientation, so they know coming in before the first day of school exactly what it is, maybe they won't feel that way if they understand what this man's sacrificed for them to have the school system they have.
I agree with my sister. I think what you're doing is very important because they're going to see that name on the auditorium. But I think I understand it like my sister, but if anyone ever knew him, they wouldn't feel that way at all. The name on the auditorium, I commented to my wife, Tamara, when we went to the opening of the auditorium, when I saw that it said Robert E. Lee, I thought that could be a problem someday. I didn't think it would be at the time, but I foresaw that, really.
Everybody we knew called him Bob except his mama. Mom always called him Robert, but I think he was known as Bob Lee. He was yeah. That's how everybody in church and referred to him. I wouldn't have a problem with Bob Lee Auditorium. It wouldn't bother me. I mean, you hate to think somebody's name wasn't good enough or something, but
I wish that they had put R.E. Lee. That's what he went by. That's how he signed every report card. Before the computers, my father actually signed every report card of every student in the county. And he didn't sign it Robert E. Lee, he signed it R.E. Lee. One day, I had lived in Nashville, Tennessee, and I had come home. I was laid off, and so I came back home, and I was helping a brother of mine who was a paint contractor, and I was helping him during the day. And we got word that the house was burning down. Their house was, and by the time I got there, it was almost gone. And this kind of tells you who my father was. I was upset because I had moved and things I owned were in the house that were burning, and I was a young man and I didn't have a whole lot, and what I had was in the house. But I looked at my father who was losing more, and he was laughing, and they were talking about burning marshmallows and getting some, they were just having fun with the house burning down. And ashamedly, it rubbed me wrong, so I grabbed my father and I took him to the side. I said, "Daddy, what's funny?" I said, "Your house is burning down." And he said, "Well, Edward, I'm not happy that my house is burning down." He said, "But once I got here, I started taking inventory." And said, "Your mom's not in there, none of my 5 children are in there, and my dog's not even in there. The way I see it, I've got everything." And so he shamed me, but he did it in a loving way, and he always was teaching. He was a teacher.
Well, I've got tears.
Surprise.
While you are collecting, if I may, Libby, I remember Dr. Lee. I was in high school whenever I really began to know him. And to me, he was like a tall giant. He was a tall stature man to me, because of course I was a whole lot younger. But he was just such a nice man. And every time you saw him, he was the same. So I appreciate the video, and had not even begun to think that the perception of his name had turned into something different. So I appreciate the insight, and the video. Very well done. And also, the lady on the board, she was from our area in Robbins. She was the mayor's wife, Lou Fry. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wondered, when you did your pie chart, Luke, and you separated out how many children didn't know who Robert E. Lee was, did you ask any of the faculty? This is a major cross-curricular project. Yeah, and I noticed you had a drone pilot as well, which I'm guessing is coming out of our drone program there at Pinecrest also, and filming and whatnot. So it was a great tribute to a life of service.
Absolutely.
How long did it take you to put all this together?
Hey, Luke, if you would, I'm going to ask you again to come on up here. We got folks that are watching a live stream of the meeting, so they want to hear you.
So I was the one who edited it, and just syncing all the audio and video, that took a long time. Like, for example, Woodstock, that huge event, that took 2 years to sync all the audio and video. And even just this small amount, I think we had 3 interviews total with 45 minutes. It took me, that was the biggest hurdle. But in total, it was probably around 300 hours of editing.
That's just you or the whole team?
Just me, yeah.
Wow.
I have to say that when I first came here in 2001, I want to say, I thought that Robert E. Lee was the general
Right.
until they educated me, the co-workers educated me on that, because I questioned it. So I'm glad you did this, because new teachers like me coming into the county probably don't know who he was. So thank you for that.
And the many, many visitors we have on campus
Yeah.
obviously do not know.
And I would like to make a few comments. When I first got on the board in 2010, I started making a lot of trips to Raleigh to go to some of the committee meetings that the legislature had up there. And many times when I mentioned I was from Moore County, your dad's name was brought up. It was absolutely amazing to me, you know, somebody that, they were in different organizations around the state, but many, many of them talked very fondly of him. And I had an opportunity to meet him shortly after I got on the board, too, at an orchestra concert at Pinecrest. And I don't remember if any of you were there or not, but the concert was over and most of the people had left, and I was walking out, and I saw this gentleman sitting there. I think he had a cane at that time, so I went up and introduced myself, and he told me, "Yeah, it's Bob Lee." So I was happy to have that opportunity to meet him and talk with him for a while. Really appreciated that. And when social media started talking about when this Robert E. Lee thing came up, there were a few comments on social media, but we very quickly jumped on that, and in a very short period of time, it never really became a big deal for us in the county because we just let people know who he was, and then that quieted them up. They had nothing to say then. So, thank you for sharing.
But nevertheless, we still had a student body that needed the education afforded by this presentation.
Well, we leave that up to the kids and the teachers. I'm more concerned about the adults at that point. I'm not an educator.
And a challenge
thanks,
to
Luke.
you,
Appreciate
Luke. You've got another year. You know, we have a building named the Voight Gilmore Building, and the James H. Moore Gymnasium, and the Barbara A. Fox Gymnasium, and there may be others like that. You'd be great if you put together a whole gallery of videos.
I'm sure Netflix would reward you handsomely.
Yeah, a mini series.
So that we might understand who these other folks are as well, because, history, that school is built to last a long, long time,
Indeed
but our
it
memories
is.
will not always be around, so
I-
add to it.
I would like to say, we didn't really introduce Luke's parents either. His mom, Christine Dandino, and Chris Diazio.
And he's got two brothers in here as well.
Oh,
both-
Introduce your
brothers.
brothers, Luke.
One,
There's Ben on the right.
Where's the other one? Okay.
And the other one's name is?
Zach.
Okay, gotta
and
get
Zach is
Zach's.
already a Pinecrest graduate, and Ben will start at Pinecrest in the fall.
Awesome.
And I think we had some more Lee relatives come in as well. So if you came in a little bit late, will you stand up for us, please? And this is Mary Hannah? Yeah, okay. You've grown up since the last time I saw you. Yeah. Can you introduce your family as well? This is another granddaughter.
Yeah, sure. This is Hannah Claire Nesbitt. I'm Mary Hannah Vaughn, and this is Maddie Arrington. And my husband, Jamie Nesbitt.
We are delighted to have you with us as we celebrate this history.
Before we excuse Luke, I just want you to give you a chance to make a plug for changing the signage.
Right. So we figured that this documentary would be a good temporary solution, but we're not sure it would have the long-lasting effect we need. Because 2 years ago, when Moore County Schools released that Facebook post clarifying, the student body still didn't learn from that. And so we're not sure that we're actually going to have enough of a tangible solution without updating the name in some fashion. So there's numerous different options, but there's definitely public support for it. Me and Miss P collected some signatures, and I believe me and Matt together got 96. I'm not sure. Right, so around at least 150 signatures supporting the concept of updating the name. There are various things you could do. You could do Bob Lee Auditorium. You could just do Lee Auditorium, Superintendent, R.E. Lee Auditorium, R.E. Lee Auditorium. But that can be figured out later, but there's definitely public support to update it.
And I did follow up on our discussion and advised board members that that does not require school board approval, because the board in the past approved the naming of the auditorium after Mr. Lee. And so I think the board will welcome the suggestion from the principal at Pinecrest after appropriate engagement with the faculty and student body and the community. So whenever the school is ready to bring forth that recommendation, I'll be prepared to support that.
And Ms. Phillips did sign the petition, too.
Oh, that's a good thing. Luke, if you would leave the petitions with our clerk, Ms. Potter, we'd appreciate that. Anything else you want to share with the
We
board?
just appreciate
Yeah.
everything that you and your group have done.
One more time. Madam Chairman, the superintendent would recommend that we take a brief recess to transition to closed session, but before we do, we might want to take some pictures.
Yeah.
We definitely want to take some pictures. Probably haven't had this many members of the Lee family together in a good while.
That's
So
right.
we definitely would like to do that along with Luke and Ms. Peterson to celebrate this moment. All right, so do we need a motion to go to closed session
Call
first?
recess.
You just call a
Oh,
recess.
Okay, we're going to take a
Take your
5-minute recess.
gavel and tap it.
recess?
There you go. There you go. There you go. Thank you, everybody.
So if we could get you, come up forward now.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that the board will enter closed session to prevent the disclosure of confidential personnel information pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A1, A5, and A6, General Statute 115C-319, to prevent the disclosure of confidential student record information pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11, General Statute 115C-402, and 20 USC .1232G, and to consult with the board attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A3.
That's it.
Is that
That'll
it?
do it.
Okay.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
We will now go into closed session.
That's a
In the absence of the chair, I would like to call this meeting back to order. I need a motion for approval of the agenda.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Dennison, second by Ms. Thompson. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Before we move on into our Pledge of Allegiance, let me just mention that prior to our closed session, we had the opportunity to view a video, the sneak preview of a student-produced video from the Pinecrest Film Club. Since the majority of you were not here with us when we viewed that, may I highly recommend you checking out on YouTube the video titled Robert E. Lee, Not That One, produced by the Pinecrest Film Club. It's an explanation of the naming of the Pinecrest High School Auditorium. So if you've ever driven by and seen Robert E. Lee Auditorium above the doorways to the building, it will explain to you that Bob Lee was superintendent for a good number of years, but the first superintendent of the consolidated Moore County Schools back in the 1959, I believe he said.
59 to 85.
So he was here quite some time. So check that one out. Now if we might call upon Gina Kelly from Student Support Services to lead us in the pledge.
If everybody would please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
And now we will hear from Anita Alpenfels for a moment's inspiration.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Grimacy, and guests. When asked to provide this evening's inspiration, I gladly accepted. In light of actions slated for this evening's agenda, I am electing to share a letter I wrote to Catherine Denning, a student at Union Pines. At her request, as students sought to have the stage at Union Pines High School named for theater arts teacher Judy Osborne. I know of nothing more inspiring than a teacher who has positively impacted the lives of students, and this one I know personally. Dear Ms. Denning, as you already know, Ms. Osborne and I began as teachers at Union Pines High School in the same year. We were both building programs from the ground up, and she, in particular, was really initiating formalized theater arts instruction that had been missing from the regular curricular program at the school. We spent many hours together in the auditorium as our students rehearsed for a world that was literally foreign to them, the production of a full-scale musical. All the while, Ms. Osborne and her husband were raising her 2 young children. I feel as if her children literally grew up before my eyes on the steps of the Union Pines High School stage. In all the years I've known Ms. Osborne, I've never known a more consummate professional educator. Though she's teaching coursework in the arts, she is an arts educator through and through. She knows what students should know and be able to do as students finish her classes, and students must demonstrate that knowledge in tangible, real-world ways. I vividly remember her patient instruction as students struggled to measure wood to construct a set. While students had learned about measuring in math class, theater arts made the importance of the skill palpable for students. One wrong measurement and the set would fall. While as the choral music teacher, I always deferred to Ms. Osborne when it came to musical time, she never ruled as many directors can. She's a teacher first, a director second. She was always collaborative, she gave clear, understandable direction for students, and she explained the whys behind her direction. She explained how actors and actresses' movements, how the sets and how the props brought words to life, indeed brought meaning to the pages of script and whisked audience members away to an imaginary land, a place to which they could escape, temporarily at least. Ms. Osborne's work has fortified a community around Union Pines High School. She's not sought to compete with other artistic and athletic opportunities at the school and across Moore County, but her provision of a quality theater arts program has supplemented some students' broad array of curricular and extracurricular opportunities at Union Pines, while providing for other students a single place of safety and belonging. I know that every day's not been easy in Ms. Osborne's journey. There are the perpetual challenges of funding, the delicate coordination it takes for students to fully participate in theater arts with the students themselves and their other teachers and coaches, the expectation that each year's shows somehow should eclipse the previous year's offerings, and the energy it takes to fully engage with students one by one. But through every challenge, Ms. Osborne has stayed the course, staying true to herself, to her art form, and to her profession as an educator. She's gotten to work early and stayed late. She's spent untold amounts of her own money, time, and other resources supporting the Union Pines High School Theater Arts program and advocating for arts education across North Carolina. In short, Ms. Osborne is deserving of this lasting honor. Thank you for recognizing her work and her investment of herself in Union Pines High School and the hundreds of students she has served as a teacher. I'm proud to be her colleague, and I'm grateful to be able to call her friend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would everyone join me in a moment of silence? And if you would remember the family of our student that we lost at Pinecrest, Dennis Purcell, along with the sister who's still in critical condition. Also remember our student who was involved in an accident right after graduation, Elijah McCormick, as we just take a moment of silence, please. Thank you. I have the great pleasure to follow up on our Engage, Inspire, Succeed recognitions this evening. And I would like for Christina Melton to join Vice Chair Carter up front, please. Christina is with the Southern Pines Primary School. It's this month's Engage, Inspire, Succeed Certified Staff Honoree. Ms. Melton has been a preschool teacher at Southern Pines Primary for 4 years. During that time, she served in many leadership capacities at the school and at the district level. She is a leader on her grade level team and voluntarily attends kindergarten team meetings so that she can ensure her preschoolers are ready to advance. She assists other preschool classrooms as a district social and emotional foundations for early learning coach. Ms. Melton's kind heart and generous spirit is contagious. Her classroom is inclusive and inviting community where learning is fun and engaging. Ms. Melton stepped in to help another classroom when a teacher left during the year. She serves as a role model for her peers, and Southern Pines Primary is truly fortunate to have her as part of their team. Congratulations to Ms. Melton. If Principal Tanya Wagner and Ms. Melton's family here this evening, if you would stand as we recognize her this evening. Mr. Tom Goldbach, if he would come up front, please. Tom is with Carthage Elementary School and is this month's Engage, Inspire, Succeed Classified Staff Honoree. Mr. Goldbach began working as a custodian at Carthage in 2008 after 32 years with a utility company. He always has a positive, can-do attitude, and he makes so many connections with his students that they think he lives at the school and sleeps in the custodial closet. He says his favorite part about working at Carthage are the staff and the children because they are a riot. One teacher refers to him as the uncle on the hall, as he takes care of anything and everything. He even gets involved in day-to-day learning. He participated in a 3rd grade lesson on inferencing where students had to use clues to find a stolen tuba. In his free time, Mr. Goldbach enjoys hiking and spending time with his family. Carthage Elementary School is so very fortunate to have such a positive and caring custodian. Is Miss Warren here this evening along with the family of Mr. Goldbach? Please stand.
For everything you do, man. Good to see you.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
If Mr. Scott Cadell would join Vice Chair Carter up front, please. Okay, thank you, Mr. McCormick. Megan Green, if you would join us up front. Okay. Thank you, Mr. McCormick. That's all right, that's all right. If Mariah Morris, she's here, if she would join us up front. We at Moore County School Systems, we are just incredibly proud to present Mariah this evening as the Burroughs Wellcome Fund Teacher of the Year for all of North Carolina, 2019-2020. At this time, I would like to read a resolution on behalf of Mariah. Whereas, for 50 years, our nation has honored teachers through a Teacher of the Year program. And whereas, in 1970, North Carolina joined this program to recognize the work of our outstanding teachers. And whereas, this program is meant to recognize teachers for their dedication, for their innovation, and ability to inspire students to achieve. And whereas West Pine Elementary teacher Mariah Morris was selected as West Pine Elementary Teacher of the Year, Moore County Teacher of the Year, and Sam Hills Region Teacher of the Year. And whereas in April, Mrs. Morris achieved the high recognition as North Carolina Teacher of the Year, the first time since its inception that this honor was bestowed on a Moore County teacher. And whereas students, parents, faculty, and staff are made richer by the motivation, inspiration, and innovation of Ms. Morris. And whereas Ms. Morris is dedicated, highly skilled, and extremely capable of inspiring students of all backgrounds and ability. And whereas Ms. Morris has pursued equity in STEM education and the opportunity to provide all students with appropriate skill-based knowledge, whereas the Moore County Board of Education acknowledges and supports the recognition of Ms. Morris as North Carolina Teacher of the Year, and whereas the Moore County Board of Education accepts with gratitude her exceptional performance and dedication to the children of Moore County and salutes her extraordinary accomplishments as North Carolina Teacher of the Year. And therefore be it known that the Moore County Board of Education hereby declares that Monday, August 26, 2019, shall officially be designated as Mariah Morris Kickoff to Excellence Day within all Moore County schools. Let me finish. Mariah will spend a full year of 2019 traveling the state as an ambassador for the teaching profession, as well as being considered for National Teacher of the Year this 10th day of 2019. Mariah, we're going to miss you, but we take pride that you represent Moore County Schools. And we just congratulate you, and if your principal
Tyndall, there she is there, and family, all family members stand. And everybody just give her a
We'll come
I
find you.
got a few more.
That's exactly right. Thank you. That is so special. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Ben Verchek, see here, come on up front. Ben just graduated from Union Pines High School. He recently won the North Carolina State Championship for the 3,200-meter run. Ben holds 6 different school records, the most in the Union Pines history, and he is the winner of 7, not 1 and 2 or 3, but 7 individual conference championships. That's enough to give him a hand right there. That was a mouthful. He's been recognized by Fayetteville Observer as well as the Raleigh News and Observer as the most outstanding cross-country athlete. As impressive as the achievement numbers and records are, he is even more an impressive young man. Ben will be remembered for his modesty, humility, leadership, and his selfless, positive attitude. I know Andy's here. Principal, stand up, and any family member that maybe Ben has. Congratulations, Ben.
While Ben is finding his seat, Ms. Thompson, I just want to add that my first year here, I went to my first Shamrock and Roll 5K. They started the race, and I was getting ready to give out the costume awards. That's about the only thing I'm capable of doing. And this skinny little kid comes across the line. I was convinced that he had cheated. There's no way a human being that size could cover that course that fast. But I was advised that was Abby's little brother. And so now we know that Abby is actually Ben's bigger sister. But we'll remember that way. But I'm going to personally miss Ben a lot. I've enjoyed having him around these last few years. Thank you.
Carmen Alder, if you would come up front, please. Join Vice Chair Carter. Since last being recognized by the board in December, Carmen, a sophomore at Pinecrest, was named the Gatorade Cross Country Runner of the Year for North Carolina. This spring, Carmen won the North Carolina High School Athletic Association 4A 1,600-meter run, both indoors and outdoors, and placed second in the 3,200-meter run in both meets. Wow. Wow. Carmen has placed in every event that she has participated in at the state championships. If Ms. Phillips, Stephanie is here along with Carmen's family, if you would stand, please, and be recognized. And
And Ms. Thompson, if I could offer this as Carmen makes her way back to her seat, I'd just like to add that this is about the second time I think Carmen's been here for recognition, and it's quite obvious that she's quite gifted young lady, but I conveyed, as I communicated to her before the meeting this evening, Carmen and some of you very high-achieving young people in the arts and athletics and whatnot, we never take that for granted. You are young people who have been born with gifts, but you do not achieve at that level without extremely hard work and sacrifice. So we never take it for granted, and bless Carmen's heart, she's very embarrassed when she gets recognized like this. But that shows humility, Mom and Dad, and we're very grateful for that character that you all are instilling within here. And Coach Buckholt, same to you in your contributions as well. But we want to make sure that nobody ever takes for granted even some of our children that are functioning at these very high levels. We think it's very special, and we're privileged to be part of it. Thank you.
And I didn't know her coach was here. If you would stand and be recognized as well. Yeah, absolutely.
I would also, she also received an honor letter part of last week that wasn't in there. She was the best of 9-10 preps cross-country athlete of the year.
Awesome. Awesome. If Gavin Temple would come up front, please. Gavin? Okay, thank you, Andy. Okay, if Abby Flynn and Emma Gast, if you would come up front, please.
Carly.
They've got Kaylee Williams and Charlotte.
Abby, a recent graduate of Pinecrest High School, and Emma, a rising senior at Pinecrest, placed first in the digital animation competition at the Skills USA State Conference. This competition recognizes exemplary work on classroom products. Students showcase a product completed in a CTE course by providing extra documentation of the design process and creating final prototypes and a table display about their work. Abby and Emma won showcasing their card game from the game art design class. Congratulations to Abby and Emma. And if Miss Phillips would stand again, as well as their family members. And let's give them a round of applause.
Emma is just a rising junior. So she's got a way to go. Is that correct? Yeah. We're going to get her back again.
At this time, we would like to recognize Northmore High School students Kaylee Williams, Charlotte Davis, Victoria Hash, and Austin Ward, who are members of the Future Business Leaders of America. They were not able to be here this evening. However, we wanted to just celebrate their achievement. The students placed first in the Parliamentary Procedure State Competition, and we send them our congratulations. Caleb Kempler and Haley Kissel. If you would join us up front, please. So I probably should have just recognized them, but they received their associate's degree from Sandhills Community College. Isn't that amazing? Union Pines students who received their associate's degree. To me, that's just amazing. Pinecrest Ladies Soccer Team and head coach Corey Rice, if you would come up front, please. The Pinecrest Ladies Soccer Team was the first in the school history to make it to North Carolina State 4A Championship. They competed against Wake Forest Heritage at Dial Field at North Carolina State University. Following a 1-1 tie after 80 minutes of regulation play, The team battled through not one, but two 10-minute overtime periods at 2 more 5-minute golden goal overtimes in 100-degree weather. Wow. Heritage ultimately prevailed 4-2 in penalty kicks. Despite the outcome, this team's fortitude shined through all season. And we are so proud of this team as well as the coach. If Stephanie would stand, please, and if they have family members with them this evening, if we can just... And let me just say again, this was the first time in the school's history that this had been done. Isn't that amazing? We just appreciate you guys. Awesome.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, just right now?
Justin Blackburn, Matthew Purser, and Julie Blue. If you would join Vice Chair Carter. 3 of Union Pines High School's most outstanding, energetic, and innovative teachers. Ms. Blue, Mr. Purser, and Mr. Blackburn have the distinguished honor of being selected to participate in the North Carolina High Mathematics Master Teacher Fellow Program. The Master Teacher Program is a partnership between North Carolina State University, the Innovation Project, and the National Science Foundation to prepare 20 master teachers of mathematics from school districts across the state of North Carolina. Wow. Fellows will engage in online courses to deepen their understanding of the mathematics that they teach and effective mathematics teaching practices and principles. Fellows will also implement and share what they have learned through the profession development projects and leadership opportunities in their schools, districts, state, and nation. Julie, Matthew, and Justin are not just teachers at Union Pines, they are also proud graduates of Union Pines. Go Vikings! Andrew would stand, and any family members. We're just so proud of you guys.
Inspiring this lady. Thank you.
Now, if we could take this opportunity to just give all of our honorees just a round of applause. That's it.
As we allow our honored guests to make an exit there, let me take a moment to recognize Mr. Lewis Gregory of our county commissioners, who's with us tonight. I don't see other elected officials, but we are delighted to have you.
Madam Chairman, with your permission?
Certainly.
Yeah, at this time, I'll invite Kate Faw, Director of Planning, Accountability, and Research, to stay exactly right where she is and to offer a program highlight on this year's class of 2019. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you. Forgive me as I read this. There are a lot of names and numbers, and I want to make sure I get them all right. Hello, Board, and thank you for giving me the great honor of bragging about our recent graduates. I'm here tonight to share with you some statistics related to the class of 2019, but also to share some shining examples of student performance both in and out of the classroom. so let's start with the numbers. The class of 2019 includes 1,016 graduates. That includes the 126 mid-year graduates. The schools reported 98 AP scholars. These are students who achieved a grade of 3 or higher on 3 or more advanced placement exams. In terms of classes taken this year, 546 seniors earned dual credit, both high school and college credit, for over 2,000 classes over the last 2 years. That's about 6,500 credit hours. It's a whole lot of college. Over 81% of students self-reported college acceptance post-graduation. 334 students qualified for the Sandhills Promise, a program offering tuition-free college for 2 years at Sandhills Community College. To be eligible, these students completed at least 4 dual enrollment classes throughout high school and had a GPA of 4.0 or higher.
Kate, if I could,
sir.
151 Union Pines graduates, that's over 50% of the graduating class.
Very close to it, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
3 students have already earned their associate's degree. Kaylee Williams from Northmore High School, and as you met, Caleb Kempler and Haley Kissel from Union Pines completed their associates before graduating from high school. Shakaya Purcell from Pinecrest will be finishing this summer, just weeks after her high school graduation. The class of 2019 earned over $26.4 million in scholarship money. That is an increase of $1.45 million over last year's total. Additionally, while the career and technical education credentials keep coming in as test scores are reported, as of this morning, 3,676 workplace credentials and/or certifications were earned by Moore County students. This number is expected to increase as the scores are finalized. In addition, 245 students scored the highest silver, gold, and platinum on the Work Keys assessment, a job-ready test that measures skills for success in the workplace. The test is taken by seniors who are completers in a CTE course of study. In addition to our 3 traditional high schools, the Community Learning Center at Pinckney has had an amazingly successful class of 2019. This year, CLC contributed to the graduation of multiple seniors. While the students technically graduate from the 3 base schools, Northmore, Pinecrest, or Union Pines, CLC served, encouraged, or offered alternative learning for 51 graduates this year alone. Additionally, they have 25 students either already at or going to a 2- and 4-year college, and 5 students receive scholarships. This is the first year that CLC students have participated in the College Career Promise classes, and they had 2 seniors take advantage. The students were excited to pioneer this territory for CLC, and the school is eager to grow the program offering in the future.
Kate, take a breath.
Yes, sir.
No, go back.
Yes, sir.
And now take a breath.
Yes,
Board
sir.
members, please dwell on that.
Impressive.
That's our Community Learning Center at Pinckney producing that type of an outcome. Somebody's got to appreciate that. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you. As we all know, we cannot truly capture the success of Moore County graduates in numbers alone. I could stand up here and tell you about Colin Weissman and Lauren Dunlap from Northmore, Kara Blue and Aiden Peters from Pinecrest, Catherine Denning and Charlie Taylor from Union Pines, who won numerous awards and tens of thousands of dollars in scholarship through their participation in performing arts programs. Or Griffin Carell at Pinecrest, who helped set up and lead the Patriot Cafe, and Ryan Hogue from Pinecrest, who won 2nd place in the Bouquet Music Festival. Jose Martina has worked at the CLC Twilight program to graduate, balancing his schoolwork with a full-time job, being a new parent, and supporting his fiancée in her return to school. There's Kyle Mueller and Scott Garton from Union Pines, who won the Achieve Award, an award that represents positivity, conscientiousness, personality, and excellence all around. I could list off at least one success for every senior who just walked across our stage. But if I did that, we'd be here until the sun came up tomorrow.
Oh, we got time. Go ahead.
I've got a packet. I'll share with you. So instead, we did ask the schools to share some of their standouts. This is by no means an inclusive and exhaustive list, but only a small sampling of the excellence portrayed by the class of 2019. We had a National Merit Scholarship semifinalist, Catherine Struhl, and a Ruth Pauley Lyceum scholar, Christian Rosas. When it comes to what's next, our students are going places, work, college, and the service. We have 3 military academy appointments. Caleb Kempler got accepted to both the Air Force Academy and West Point and has decided on Air Force. Sophia Hurdle and Tristan Poller are also going to the Air Force Academy. Numerous students have received ROTC scholarships from schools both near and far. Moore County students will be serving in every branch of the United States military next year. This year, the career and technical education programs excelled, so much so that I had to stop listing individual awards because the PowerPoint started freezing up on me. Suffice it to say that the class of 2019 is career ready like no class before them. At our first annual Career Signing Day, we had 10 students sign contracts with local employers to start work immediately after high school, if not before. CTE students competed in numerous conferences and competitions and walked away winners in almost every one. Pinecrest had 4 top 10 finishes at the Future Business Leaders of America State Conference. At the FBLA National Conference, Kaylee Williams, Charlotte Davis, Austin Ward, and Victoria Hash won first place in parliamentary procedures, and Francis Gillian Diaz earned second place in public speaking. At the Skills USA State Conference, we had several champions from both Pinecrest and Union Pines, and one student, Gavin Temple of Union Pines, will be competing in the Skills USA National Conference. At the Distributive Education Clubs of America DECA State Conference, the team of juniors Alex Ong and senior Tristan Poller got 8th place in finance services. At the Health Occupation Students of America HOSA state event, Mark Williamson got 2nd place in medical spelling, which personally I find extremely impressive, and Megan Jackson got silver in sports medicine, while Tanner Spear, Brooklyn Kuhn, and Brianna Diaz were FFA state winners in veterinary science. Sports, as always, was popular with the class of 2019, and our student athletes excelled both on and off the field. Numerous Moore County students received scholarships to play schools both in and out of state, including 4 volleyball players, 9 football players, 6 soccer players, 2 wrestlers, 5 basketball players, 2 softball, 4 baseball, 1 cross country, 6 lacrosse players, and 1 future golf pro. Playing at schools as close as Sandhills Community College and as far away as Oberlin College in Ohio, our students will participate in collegiate athletics at Guilford College, St. Andrews, Virginia Military Institute, William Peace, Methodist, and more. The class of 2019 athletes will be playing in private and public colleges all along the Eastern Seaboard and beyond. In addition, both Pinecrest and Union Pines are Wells Fargo Cup winners, an award for overall sports excellence among North Carolina high schools. Northmore wanted you to know about their all-state boys soccer player, Alex Hernandez, Sierra Daniels, who earned female state runner-up in shot put, and Jalen Johnson, a state finalist in boys 110-meter hurdles. Pinecrest wanted to brag about their football, women's soccer, and bowling teams making school history. The fact that they were a Wells Fargo Cup winner with 149 total points, that they won 14 out of 21 conference championships, and that the 910 Preps named 4 first-team players. Union Pines points out that they made it to the state playoffs in men's soccer, volleyball, women's tennis, women's basketball, baseball, softball, and women's soccer. Ben Verchik was state champion in the 3,200-meter run, and they had 5 seniors named Players of the Year. This Friday and Saturday, the class of 2009 took the next step into their future. We are sure that they will represent Moore County schools well, no matter where their path leads. So let us congratulate the Northmore Mustangs, Union Pines Vikings, Pinecrest Patriots, and the CLC Tigers. Remember that graduation is not the end, it is the beginning. Thank you for your time, and please join me in congratulating again the class of 2019.
Thank you, Mrs. Fall. That was, if anybody can handle all the statistics, we know that you can. So I'm sure those numbers will all check out, especially those big numbers on the scholarship money, which are very important to a lot of families. Dr. Grimacy.
Madam Chair, present to you the consent agenda, and staff is prepared to assist with any questions that may come up.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Dennison, second by Ms. Thompson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved 6-0.
Madam Chair, with your permission,
Yes, sir.
at this time, would you like to proceed or sometimes we take a break
you
at
need
the
a
end of the
break?
consent agenda?
Then
Proceed
let's
on? Okay.
Go right on.
At this time, I'll invite Mr. Andrew Cox to join me at the podium. It states superintendent's report, but Mr. Cox and I have worked closely on the analysis of the impact of the county manager's proposed budget on the school board's approved budget for FY 2019-20. I'm going to let Mr. Cox lead on that presentation, and I'll pitch in as may be needed. So, Andrew, proceed.
All right, thank you, Dr. Grimacy. Will this Okay, perfect, all right. So I do want to talk a little bit about the impact of the county's proposed budget on the Board of Education's approved budget that was submitted and presented to the county. On this slide here is a listing from the county in January 2019, the preliminary figures that was presented from the county. Which want to emphasize that from January to June, even through all our budget preparations, our budget formulation, presentation to the commissioners, that the only thing that changed from their January projection was the amount of debt service. And they had more favorable rates for interest, so that decreased. And the funding that they projected in January was the funding they're proposing for the actual budget. So the next few slides will cover the framework of needs. These were included in the budget that was approved by the Board of Education and presented to the county commissioners. So you should be familiar with these slides and the way they're listed. The county's proposed budget includes additional $850,000 in operation funding for the district. So as you see here on the framework of needs slides, it's going to be able to cover adding 2 teachers to support the mandated class size reduction. We'll be able to cover the additional students that's going to be attending charter schools, a payment that we have to pay out of county appropriations for that. We'll be able to cover state mandated salary increases. Right here we're estimating 3% for certified and 1% for classified. We know the state budget hasn't passed, so that number may change a little bit, but that's our estimate right now. And we'll be able to maintain the school reception allocation based on changes in ADM at the schools. That total is $809,000. So we have $40,400 left to fund additional items. The next item on the framework of needs is to fund the local supplement salary step for certified teachers. That required $270,000, so we're already at a deficit of $229,600. Everything else in your framework of needs, as you'll see in the next few slides, are not funded. So we have additional $40,400 and a deficit of $1.3 million just on this slide here. So the next slide on the framework of needs covers restoring past cuts. We won't be able to do any of that, totaling approximately $1.1 million. We won't be able to add the value-added investments to help increase ADM for the school district. The next slide talks about restoring or expanding to meet deferred needs, things that have been pushed off based on lack of funding in prior years. None of these items will be able to be funded in the proposed county budget. Just give you a minute to look at them. So, just give you a summary based on the framework of needs from the proposed budget from the county, based on the approved budget from the board. To maintain current operations, we were funded, we'll be able to fund the $809,600. Again, like I said, there's $40,000 to do all the other things you wanted in the framework of needs. That next step was to fund the local salary supplement for certified staff, but we don't even have enough to do that. So as you see here, based on your budget that you approved, based on the county's proposed budget, there's a deficit of $3.3 million, nearly $3.4 million. You also requested in the framework of needs, some one-time costs to the county. As you see here, the only thing that is funded is provide operational costs for startup for McDeeds Creek Elementary that will open this year at $739,133.
Which was already included as a separate line item.
Yeah, and it
by
was
the
in the
county.
proposed, yes,
Yeah.
ma'am, yes, ma'am. So that's the only thing of these one-time needs that were funded. So this, in summary, tells you historical funding from the county. As you see there, this is talking about annual increases, recurring, not one-time increases. Will increase from $31 million to $31,850,000. As you see there, the increase is $850,000, or a 2.74% increase based on the proposed county budget. And this slide includes one-time costs. You'll see there the first column, $31,850. Second column, you see the one-time cost of $739,133. The other supplemental request was not funded for a total funding from the county for operations, $32,589,133. Be happy to answer any questions.
So Andrew, would you go back to, I don't know what page it is, but it's the framework of needs slide, the very first one that shows, okay, that one. So as we understand from this slide, basically the 809,000, we don't have a choice. It's basically, that is our obligation to assure that we're compliant with the state K-3 teachers allotment. So we don't have a choice but to fund for current operations.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Okay. And so for all of our other items that are lined through, we're just...
On all the other slides?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
So that means that we just do without, because we don't have fund balance to really, we're at 2 million, just a little over 2 million fund balance, are our savings. So all of the work that we did with our survey and our work with our classified staff to try to get them to a decent salary and all of that work, what we're saying is that we just don't have funds for any of that.
Based on the proposed funding from the county, their budget, that is correct. We don't have funding for that, and those items will not happen. We'll just have to continue to defer them.
And since we are pledged to not use fund balance for
Exactly.
ongoing expenses, because that has to be held for emergencies, contingency fund
Yes,
type
ma'am.
items that can come along, things that the state decrees but does not fund. So that money is truly not accessible for day-to-day
Yes, ma'am, that is
expenses.
correct.
And just to elaborate on that, and to remind the board, Madam Vice Chair, that $2 million fund balance is intended to cover delays in federal reimbursements. So there has been a time during my time here where the backlog of federal reimbursements has gotten as high as over $800,000. And so there are times where we just, for cash flow purposes, need to have a fund balance to cover that. And so that $2 million has been designated as a threshold. It is not intended to be a fund balance that's large enough to sustain operations for any more than, what we're lucky if we had 6 weeks out of that. Yeah, maybe 6 weeks, when of course, accountants recommend to local governments that they maintain, many more millions of dollars to maintain operations. We don't have that designation from the state to do that. So right now, that $2 million is there to cover cash flow.
And just to follow up on what Dr. Grimacy said, average monthly expenditures from local funds is about approximately $2 million. So it would cover essentially 1 month.
And then if we don't get money for the transfer for personnel from bridge funding to local funds, then we feasibly could lose those positions.
Yes, ma'am.
And if we don't get money for the infrastructure, for the technical areas, we could very, very easily crash.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It's all network, it's basic, it's infrastructure, just basically essentially same as turning on your lights.
It's been at least 6 or 7 years that I'm aware of, maybe even longer, that we had any type of digital upgrade in our infrastructure. And I'm very concerned not only about all of these, but that too, because we are now depending on the computers and Chromebooks for our students in order, I mean, we don't have even textbooks anymore. We're using computers.
Dr. Brown, if I could, I'm going to ask Mr. Cox to elaborate on the threat to our federal funding if we do not get money to invest in that infrastructure.
Yeah, the infrastructure costs were projected at $1.3 million, but because of federal E-rate funding, if we complete it by next year, they'll give us $560,000 towards that. So that's why we only requested $740,000 to cover a portion of that. But if we don't complete it, then we're going to have to cover the cost, the full cost of $1.3 million.
So that would be the 1.3 million. Ooh.
So obviously,
So we lose $560,000.
and obviously the money is not in the budget the commissioners have offered
Correct,
to make that
yes.
coverage.
Correct, yes.
I have a question. How are we going to start up our schools for Aberdeen and Southern Pines?
At this point, we don't know.
Yeah, I think, I need to address that. The presentation tonight does not pretend to have the answers. The presentation tonight defines the implications. And so, obviously, we still have a lot of work to do. There's only another, it's June 18th where the commissioners will approve their budget. The public hearing is on the same night that they approve their budget. Has to be done before the end of June. So we don't pretend to think that we're going to get a whole lot more money. So the staff right now has to plan for the worst-case scenario.
So, Mr. Cox, it's my understanding that last year's budget was based upon a 40% figure coming out of the county collections. Now, this is not 40% this year. Is that correct?
Correct, yes, ma'am. It's just over 37%.
So 37%. So not only do we know that costs go up on everything we do, we're looking at a major cutback as well in the percentage that the county is allotting the schools.
Yes, ma'am.
Which makes a tremendous difference. I'm also concerned, I know that we've not even approached them seriously on the 1.9 million that's needed to continue with capital improvements in our older schools. We know what happens when you neglect schools. They fall down around you. And for this funding not to occur, the additional 1.9 million, which we're going to be needing on an annual basis, is very disturbing. We're going to be looking at other schools hitting major disaster areas.
I'd like to comment on that one also, if I may. I sort of had an understanding when we did the sales tax thing, which was going to be used for construction, that that money would be used for that 1.9 million. I think we all know what Aberdeen School looked like, and so I thought there was sort of a feeling that we weren't going to let that happen to our other schools. And it looks like we only get $800,000 a year lottery money to handle this stuff. We get $750,000 from the county, but the $72 million we outlined that we needed, and we had a 20-year plan to accomplish that, so we wouldn't have schools ending up like Aberdeen Primary. And the $1.9 million plus the money we were getting would allow us to do that over a 20-year period. And now I have no clue what's going to happen. I guess we have to wait till they fall down before we can do anything. But that's what really disappointed me, because I thought that money was specifically going to be used for that instead of the bond thing.
Mr. Dennison, I think it is fair to say that when the sales tax was put to a vote in the fall, the estimate at that time was that it would yield additional revenues of 2.5 to 3.1 additional local dollars per year. In the county manager's budget, he's estimating 2.8 million in revenue for the coming year. I think it's fair to say that my understanding was that that money would be used for debt service, but by virtue of that money being available for debt service, there would be some flexibility for funds to be found for that 1.9 million. It was Mr. Gregory who made me pledge to him that we would never again allow a Aberdeen primary to happen again, and my pledge was then made manifest in the presentation of that 20-year plan, which has not been funded at all since then. We presented it formally in January of this year. It's subject to further discussion. It's been subject to further discussion for quite some time. But I do think it's fair to say that that we were looking at an additional $2.6 to $3.1 million from the sales tax, and whether it's used for debt, the debt service has to be paid.
Right.
But the hope was that it would enhance the county's ability to have the funds available to at least begin to make some progress on that 1.9 million per year. And I look forward to future conversations with the county manager and the commissioners to see just how soon I think everybody agrees it's going to happen. It's just been difficult to pin down any guess as to when that would happen.
Well, my understanding is also with the bonds, that because of the county's rating, we were able to save considerable amount of money other than what we had anticipated because of that improved rating.
It's been very good news so far on each of the projects. The only project that's gotten to 3% was the Northmore project. The McDeeds Creek and Southern Pines and Aberdeen projects were all under 3%. Our construction budgets were all based on 4.5%, but I'd have to yield to Davenport and to the county manager as to what that savings would be. That would be a good question for the two boards to talk about, as to compared to what the cost would have been based on our original construction budgets, how much money has been saved, and combined with the bond premiums that we've received in the issuance of the bonds, which have been very substantial. I'm very proud of the amount of money that we have saved, the taxpayers, and I'm glad you asked that question.
I had a question about the bond premiums. Is there still any discussion or potential for a portion of the premium on the bonds that was unanticipated but came in substantial amount of money?
We've received no indication that there's, at this point, that those funds are available for any of the needs that we've outlined this evening, or for any of the impacts of inflation on our construction costs. At this point, there's no indication.
I'd like to make note also that as we have our $40,000 there to put toward salary step increases, or wherever that $40,000 ends up, it's difficult to hire qualified, highly qualified, certified staff. I think we could go to Anita Alpenfels and she would tell us that recruitment of qualified teachers is a difficult thing at this time. There just aren't enough teachers to fill all the classrooms. And for us not to be able to keep up with the salary step that we use within our bonus program or supplement program is worrisome. It is just a small tool in the recruitment process, but sometimes it makes a difference.
Last year when the board approved the shift, previously we had the local supplement for certified staff, and certified staff, of course, is teachers and administrators and counselors and psychologists and whatnot. We moved to the scale because previously the supplement had based on a percentage. We had always provided 8% of the salary as a local supplement. One of the reasons why I agreed with the county manager that we should move to a scale-based approach was that we could then budget a fixed cost. When you're trying to aim for a percentage, you don't know what your cost is going to be because you have to wait for the state to approve the ultimate salary increase. This cost that you see estimated here at $270,000 is a fixed cost. This is what we will pay to teachers on a step. It may or may not be 8%, depending upon what the increase is from the state. So it was a cost management step that we took. It was not, when I met with all the faculties, I made it very clear to everyone that this wasn't necessarily a promise of anything that was going to be very lucrative for them, but it was a disciplined approach to budget management. And so we approved it last year for that reason. So this is a fixed cost, but at $850,000, you can see that we can't even cover all of our fixed costs at this point, particularly since we're obligated by law to cover the additional teachers for the state class size reduction mandate, how that applies to our schools, because not all of our students are under the same roof, and also our obligations to meet the local costs associated with charter school students who have never attended our schools.
I have a question on classified staff. I know we've had studies done when we came up with a proposal. Are the salaries our classified staff making, how does that compare to the equivalent jobs that the county people are making?
You may recall, Mr. Dennison, that we worked with the Piedmont consulting group that advised the county on its salary scale, which it will now fully fund for the coming year. They funded half of it in the first year of implementation this year. Now they'll fully fund it in the coming year. And we're very grateful that they're doing that. We think that our county employees deserve that scale, and we support that 100%. Inspired by that, we recognized that once we moved our certified employees to a scale, and once the county moved all of its employees to a scale, the only group that was left that had not received that kind of attention were the classified employees for Moore County schools. And so at the end of the county's process of developing and beginning the process of implementing its own scale, we sought to replicate that with our classified employees. And the basis of that was an intensive comparison of surrounding school districts, surrounding local governments and municipal governments to compare classification by classification, the same exact way the county had done. What we found was, of course, is that it would be very expensive to move to this scale. So whereas the county had a 5-step scale, we imposed a 30-step scale. So our classified employees' growth on that scale would be much more slow than the county employees on their 5-step scale. This was a cost management approach that we were using so that our costs would not increase that much. You approved the scale's inclusion. It would be the first opportunity our classified employees have had to see a modest growth every year, consistent. It was based on input that they had received. And it would actually not necessarily make us very competitive in our region. It would just sort of move us to the middle. We weren't looking to be number one in this. We were just looking to not fall behind. And again, at $850,000, we're far short of being able to even. I had thought that we might be able to do maybe 25 or 33% and at least get it started, maybe work it in over 3 years. But at $850,000, it's a non-starter. And I'll be apologizing to all of our classified employees for having misled them into thinking that that was a possibility. I honestly thought in this year that this was something that it was reasonable, and it does not appear as though it was. I probably should never have indicated that we even had any hope.
So in just a few words, you're saying county employees are going on to a new scale that is being funded over the 2-year period. Moore County Schools classified employees will not be.
That's correct. That's correct. I do want to make it clear, though, that I support the county employees.
And we would like to pay
having
the
their
Moore
scale.
County
I
school
think
employees an equal.
Yeah,
equally.
what the county commissioners have approved and what the county manager and his staff developed, I think was outstanding. I applaud them for it, and I applaud our county employees. I'm privileged to work with them. And so I don't want to say anything that indicates any reservation about that. I just simply deeply am saddened by the fact that we don't even have a chance to get started with ours. And like many other things, we just need to defer and try again next year.
Other questions?
I'm surely hoping if the county commissioners can relook at our budget and think about funding, if not something, a little bit more. I think that would that'd be a step in the right direction, especially, it just saddens me that, I mean, I was just thinking about this lady sitting, when we were at a county commissioners meeting, just sitting there, and she was so excited that we were going to give her a raise. And it wasn't a lot, and she's been working for 25 years. She was Southern Pines Primary, and she was just thankful and grateful, and it's going to be sad to know that, you know, she's going to come back to school next year, and it's not going to happen. And she told me she was working 2 jobs just to make ends meet. So it makes me sad.
Well, we have Mr. Gregory here. I'm sure he's taking all of this in. Obviously, the proposed budget from our commissioners, from our county manager, is not adequate to truly keep our Moore County schools at the level of excellence that is deserved. So please take that message back for us, Mr. Gregory.
I would just like to make one more comment. I mean, we're talking about the commissioners' budget, are approving our budget, or dealing with our budget. But I'd just like to point out that the real problem is at the state level. Statutorily, the commissioners are responsible for construction and those type costs, and the state is responsible for operating costs. And the state's not pulling their weight in making sure we do this. So we need to keep after them, and they need to do the right thing. If they're really interested in education, pretty soon they're going to realize they can't educate all their children through charter schools, since 85% of our kids are going to public schools. So they're going to have to realize that they need to put the money where they'll get the most benefit, and that will be with the traditional public schools.
Very well said.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else, Mr. Cox? Dr. Grimacy?
Madam Chair, that completes the superintendent's report. I remain at your service.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we would be moving to public address to the board, but we do not have anyone signed up for public address to the board. Does anyone need a break? If not, then we'll move on to board action. Our next item is the time of year to consider an appointment to the Sand Hills Community College Board of Trustees. And in my position as vice chair, I would entertain a motion of nomination for a representative of the Moore County Schools to
Madam Vice Chair,
Sand Hills.
I'd like to make some comments, and I'll make a nomination. I have talked with, I remember when we appointed Arthur Blue as our appointment to the Board of Trustees 4 years ago. And I've spoken with him and also with Dr. Dempsey and George Little, who is chair of the board, and they would both very interested in having Arthur continue on as a member of the Board of Trustees. So I move that Arthur Blue be appointed a member of the Board of Trustees for 4 more years.
Is there a second?
Second.
Does this require,
The vote, yes.
well, does this require opening a floor for other nominations? Or-
No, you would enter the name into, I'll defer to legal.
If there are, I think it would be prudent to see if there are any other nominations.
Okay, are there other nominations?
I move nominations be closed.
Okay. All right, then this will take it to a vote. All those in favor of
You
the,
need to close the nominations. Yeah, you have a
Did I
motion
do that?
to, you have
Okay.
a
Okay,
motion
all
to
those in favor
close.
of closing the nominations?
Second.
Aye.
Who seconded the motion to close the
I
nominations?
did.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson.
Okay, so we closed.
Now
All
we
those in
vote.
favor of closing, say aye. Okay, it's 6-0 in favor of closing nominations. All right, the only name in consideration is that of Art Blue. All those in favor of the appointment of Mr. Blue to the Sand Hills Community College Board of Trustees, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the appointment is confirmed, 6-0.
With your permission, Madam Vice Chair?
Yes, sir.
I'll ask Dr. Powers to approach the podium. You'll recall last week, he brought before you a staff recommendation based on community input to name the Union Pines Auditorium stage after Judy Osborne. And the superintendent has advanced that recommendation. Dr. Powers and I are delighted to answer any questions you might have.
Are there questions? We might recognize Ms. Osborne in the audience,
Oh, yes.
Yes.
along with,
And there are other people. All the Union Pines people in favor of this, please stand up.
and we still got Mr. McCormick here.
There we go.
There you go.
We might want to recognize Mr. Osborne over here to the side, who is unfailing
Hi, Wade.
support. All right, so
You might want to invite a motion, Madam Chair.
I was going to say the floor is open for a motion.
I move that we approve the recommendation for the stage at Union Pines High School to be called Judy Osborne Stage. Is that what it's going to be called?
Is there a second?
Something to that effect.
Yeah, we'll be sure to clarify the name.
Just be named after her.
That's right, not the other one.
That's right.
Whoever it might be. All right, the motion has been made to name the stage after Judy Osborne, the stage at Union Pines High School. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the motion is unanimous.
One more time.
And I'm sure that there will be an appropriate naming ceremony coming up at some point in the future. Yeah, I don't know, stage dancing, something, that Dr. Powers will let us know about this in the upcoming weeks. Maybe, I don't know, maybe not until school starts back, but we are pleased and proud.
Thank you to the 3 girls that has waited this entire meeting.
Would you like to say anything about Mrs. Osborne? You're speechless.
We didn't put you on the spot.
You're speechless. Well, we appreciate the community.
And a couple of them were part of the scholarship recipients this year. I recognize the face. Weren't you? For their theater scholarships. So,
Well, thank you to the group at Union Pines who got behind this and brought it to action. All right.
With your permission, Madam Vice
And
Chair,
results.
I'll invite Mr. Barath to come to the podium. Last week at your work session, Mr. Barath provided you with a detailed presentation on the bid results for the Northmore High School addition and renovation. He and I are happy to answer any questions. Our recommendation does come forth with, this proposal comes forth with the superintendent's recommendation. We'll invite your
questions?
consideration.
It's long overdue. That's not a question, but long overdue, and I think we unanimously in saying we're ready to make this happen.
Motion
There's one way to
to,
do that.
Motion?
motion to approve.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? By 6-0 decision.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Thank
there's
you.
no other further business from the administration.
All right, then that takes us to board comments, and I think we're starting on Mr. Cunningham's end.
Yes, I was very excited to be included in the tour of the new school on Route Highway 5 last week. Mr. Gregory, we missed you. You've been a strong advocate for the Aberdeen schools, and you will be impressed and amazed when you see the progress that's being made. Mr. Brass said that we're on schedule about halfway through the project, 42% or so, and it is spectacular.
If you guys didn't hear, he just said he has his full he has full support for us for the Aberdeen School.
Yeah. You'll
We'll
love
find
seeing the
another
building.
opportunity for you to tour sometime, Mr. Gregory, when you're up and about. Yes, sir. We'll do it.
All right, Dr. Brown.
I have things written down, so because I want to include a number of things. As we listen to the budget presentation tonight, along with the June 4th presentation of the county manager's budget, I had high hopes initially, but I'm sorely disappointed because we're just being allocated enough to keep the status quo of our requested budget. With the county offering its classified staff steps and a salary increase, and to have ours eliminated just tears at me because our people have not had a raise in a number of years. And this gives them possibilities over even though it's a longer period of time, it shows the potential for growth and for incentive. In our classified staff, not being able to fund those teachers, we're going to continue increasing in size. And I don't know any other profession that has a frontline person, AKA teachers, supervising 30-plus people. And usually they'd be supervising adults. So to have that not be funded is, again, I think going to be hazardous to our health, both the teachers' mental health as well as the students. We're not being able to fund the digital piece, so that means that the teachers are going to have to put on another hat, AKA a digital facilitator, because they're going to have that aspect of things. And as a former educator, having to put on another hat is not going to help the balance of what we need to do with our basics. We need specialization in certain areas. We don't have the infrastructure. I'm really scared about that because my husband is a computer person, and when I talk to him about what's going on, and he says they haven't been updated in how many years? And I know that the staff is trying to do what they can do, but I don't know how many Band-Aids and duct tape you can use on some of this stuff anymore. We keep talking about security and keeping our students safe, but we aren't going to have additional money for resource officers, nurses, social workers, psychologists, counselors, and I feel like we're just getting started with our teams to get that going. We're doing surveys to find out where students need help. What was it, listen, 130 students that we're serving? I mean, think about if we didn't have that before, how many of those we'd miss and what could happen to those students. By not having the allocation of 40% this year, I really am, I don't understand why it's waived this year when we've got money coming in. And I'd like to sit down and have a talk with the commissioners about that, because if we could get it up to 40%, it would gross, I think, Ed, you figured out about $3.6 million, or Dr. Bob, you did, that if we could move it from the 37 to 40%, it would be close to $3.6 million that we could do, and that would make up the difference. I'm looking at the county's budget. I think we have the money that we can get, but I don't understand why we're not.
Mr. Dennison.
I'm going to give a legislative report. I've looked at all the crossover bills. Those are the bills that have been in either the House or the Senate and crossed over to the other branch. There are a lot of them, but there hadn't been a lot of activity on them, but there will be activity on two of them this week. One is SB 219, the modified teacher licensing, and the other one is the teacher contract changes, which will be discussed tomorrow at the Senate Rules Committee meeting. And I have a Board of Directors meeting at School Board Association Friday, and I'll get more detail and update you then. Thanks.
Thank you. And as you said, it's the budget shortchange begins in Raleigh. And if we can remain in contact with our representative and senator in Raleigh, then perhaps we can encourage them to step up and make the difference. So we appreciate your efforts down in that part of the state.
They listen, but they don't do what I want them to do.
Keep working on it, Ed. Ms. Thompson.
My comment is, as always, the end of the year, we always end on a high note. With going to promotions of our 5th graders, 8th graders, we sort of split up and attended different ceremonies, and of course then being involved Friday nights with student graduations, and then Saturday morning praying that it wouldn't rain, and we got through Pinecrest. And that's always just an exciting moment for all of our students. Unfortunately, obviously at Pinecrest, we were saddened with Dennis not being there, and our hearts were deeply saddened. But the students, as they would cross the stage, I would begin to ask them, "What are you doing?" And all of them had an answer. They had a response. They were either already going to the workforce, or they were going to Minnesota, Ohio, Florida, just different places all over the country. And you just felt so excited for them. And then to end on a disappointing note this evening with our budget. I agree with everything Betty has said. In looking at our budget and just the shortfalls of every single item that we had asked for to not only to replace, but to just get us up to where we needed to be. We didn't ask for a lot of additional dollars, but to get us to a point to where we really could begin to operate and function. It's disappointing. So we are hopeful that our commissioners will take a second look. We know that this figure was presented back at the work session in January. And so if they could just take a second look at some of the key line items that we have put in to even get us up to the 40%. That would be just so beneficial for our needs as for this coming school year.
Ms. Caldwell.
Going last, everyone else has said everything that I wanted to say. So I'm going to make it short and sweet, but I agree with Pam, exactly what you said, Pam, and you too, Dr. Betty. I'm just hoping we can reconsider, because it does kind of put a damper on the end of the year, and I want to have a great start next year. So.
All right. Well, we do want to wish everyone a good summer. I'd just like to add a little bit, and this is going back over some of what Dr. Brown has already said. Over the course of the past 3 months, this board has thought long and hard about the budget request for the upcoming 2019-2020 school year. I feel we must note that every single item included in the request is an item that is clearly needed for the continuation or support of programs already within our schools. We are not asking for new programs or enhanced supports. We are asking to maintain the programs that already exist within Moore County and to provide the personnel necessary to make them all work. Now, we all know that our budget request included a large increase, but I think we can agree that we did not go into this lightly. Our commissioners want to know what is happening in our schools. They say they want to support the exceptional programs and services that are provided, and they have the ability to make this happen. Yet the budget as presented by County Manager Wayne Vest adds absolutely the bare minimum to the budget of the previous year. As presented, there will be no funds to add teachers back to our 4th to 8th grade classrooms. There is no money to replace psychologists, school resource officers, or counselors to be available when critically needed. There is no money to place our classified personnel on a competitive salary scale and to offer equitable wages like those of our Moore County government. It appears that our county commissioners and county manager have listened, but yet did not actually hear what our public schools truly need. At this time, it is critical that the people of Moore County let the commissioners know that this MCS budget request has your support. Let them know that you want to see programming continue, you want to see class sizes shrink, and you want our children to feel safe and secure, no matter what it takes. We encourage you to email your commissioners with your thoughts. Their email addresses are available on the county website. Let them know that you want your school funding to remain at or above the 40% standard set for previous years. Next Tuesday, July 18th, at 5:30 p.m., the commissioners will offer a public hearing on the budget, and then we'll vote immediately on its passage. Please join us at this meeting at the old courthouse and let our commissioners know that your Moore County schools should first and foremost receive their financial support. So, next Tuesday. Other comments? Dr. Bob?
No, ma'am.
All right, is there a motion?
So move. Move the meeting be adjourned.
Mr.
Second.
Dennison and Dr. Brown. All right, with that motion, all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.